Hey everyone, and welcome back to Beat the Sheet, an Xbox Game Pass challenge. The only podcast aiming to complete every single one of the now over 450 titles that have been made available on Xbox Game Pass since the start of 2020. As always, I'm your host Andy Wood, and I'm joined by my co-host Josh.
450 titles? Oh, God.
Just disgraceful. So, on this week's show, we are surveying the wreckage that is our lives while we play Wreckfest. A Leaving Soon title sends chills down our spine. And we take on the first Nintendo Direct in over 500 days in the return of the Lightning Round.
Woo! Yeah,
bringing that lightning again. So, how are you doing this week, Josh?
I'm doing okay. You know, naturally, before this show, I decided to have another go at beating Who Wants to Be a Millionaire on the Dreamcast.
Of course.
I've still not beat it, if anyone is interested. But I do have a £1 million question for you because I can remember it because I got there once more. So let's see if you would have won the £1 million question. I'll hit it up for you. What was the name of the villainous cat in Disney's Cinderella? Was it Lucifer, Timothy, Boots, or Caruso?
Oh, right. I didn't know there was a cat in that film.
Me neither. Took me by surprise.
I'm gonna take a shot at Timothy. Screw it, why not?
You know, that's what we did as well. Yeah, that's what I gave a shot at, and I was wrong. No, it's Lucifer.
That wouldn't have even been my second guess. If I thought it was too on the nose, it was just too easy.
You'd be getting that basement theme, Who's to Be a Millionaire theme right back at you. But yeah, other than that, my copy of Persona 5 Strikers turned up yesterday. And yeah, I'm just fobbing off Game Pass for the next week to play through that. I am having a blast dropping back into that world. I love those guys. Love that game so much.
Where did you buy that from? Just to give whoever sent it to you 4 days early a shout out, because that's nice.
If you're in the UK, buy from Simply Games. Simply Games are a damn good website, very cheap, and they send all their games first class and sometimes quite early. So they posted that on Friday when it was here on Saturday. So yeah. Shout out to Simply Games. Good prices, good delivery times. I think they're affiliated with Amazon, but don't hold that against them. We can't all be perfect.
No, that's fair. That's fair. That started to sound like a sponsor read in the end. No one sponsors this show, but anyway, yeah, sounds like
you can do.
Please do. But right now they don't. But sounds good. One of these days you'll beat Millionaire. It might have to be that maybe once I can actually come visit you again, you can just play the Millionaire game and I'll sit at the side with my phone so I can cheat, and I'll just tactically cough when the right answer comes up, and then you can just pick the answer. We'll just that's an official way to beat Millionaire. It's fine.
It's just work to the past. Work for Ingram.
Exactly.
Work for us. How are you doing? What have you been up to this week?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. The Leaving Soon games, which we'll get into later, were actually finished with quicker than expected this time. So, we have a rare bit of time where we're not just completely at the mercy of playing Leaving Soon titles. So I was thinking about picking Final Fantasy 12 back up, which we spoke about last week, because I was really enjoying it. But I've decided to be more sensible, and I've gone for Final Fantasy 7 instead, because that has the potential to leave Game Pass a lot sooner than 12. So yeah, I've spent about 15 hours in the company of original PS1 title Final Fantasy 7 this week, which is a old game. It's a good game, but it's real old. So
how you finding those ham hock hands, those big hams?
Honestly, the most jarring part of this game, and I think it's something that if people didn't play games in that era at all, they just wouldn't be able to cope anymore. Like I played a lot of N64, so I've kind of got, my eyes couldn't adjust to the nonsense that is early 3D games. But the bit that's really difficult to look at in this game is some of the pre-rendered background areas. Like you literally can't even tell where there's a platform because it's just this muddy, just mush of pre-rendered nonsense. So that's pretty tricky. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's nice to get through a title that really, it's been a blind spot for a lot of years, and I should have played it much sooner. So that's been good.
It's a good game. Music's good, isn't it? That soundtrack. Oh,
that is a very, very good soundtrack.
How much do you love? Who do you love more, Aerith or Tifa? Have you made a decision here which team you're on? I'm Team Clerith. Are you Team Cleaver?
I feel like it's quite hard to. I think your opinions on that were formed more on playing the remake. I have no attachment to anyone in the original game because they're all just big blocky people. I don't know. Maybe if I'd played it at the time, I'd have more of an attachment. But I'm largely just steamrolling this thing. If I had to pick one, I'd be going Aerith. But yeah, I don't know. I'll probably feel more into it once I actually play the remake.
Maybe so, maybe so. But we've got a jam-packed show this week. We've got a lot to cover, so shall we get right into it?
Yep, let's do it.
Okay, so we have had 2 new additions to the Xbox Game Pass service this week, and they are Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire Ultimate Edition. That thing has a colon and a dash in it. That is some horrific grammar right there. And Wreckfest. Okay, so just the 2 titles. Again, a pretty quiet week, but what did you make of these 2?
Well, I said something last week, which was that there wasn't a lot of games last week, but there was a lot of game. And that kind of stands true again this week because, Pillars of Eternity will take you an eternity to beat. So we didn't need Pillars of Eternity Ultimate Edition with even more content. But, nonetheless, it's meant to be a great series. So it's a good pickup for Game Pass. And obviously it's pretty much a first-party game now because it's made by Obsidian, who Microsoft owns. So this is probably a lock to stay in Game Pass long-term as well, which is good because you're going to need a lot of time to beat it. And then, Wreckfest is just a cool little racing game, more of a destructive slant to it. So it's separates itself from your kind of Forzas and your dirt games. So, for a week that only has 2 games, I think it's a decent week.
I'm absolutely thrilled Pillars of Eternity 2 is an Obsidian game because I want nothing to do with it. I'm sure it's good. I'm sure it's good, but I don't want to play it at all. So it's going to be pretty far down my list of games to get to. So yeah, not one for me, but Wreckfest. Wreckfest I've always had a slightly curious eye upon because that game's a little bit different from the normal racing formula, and I got to spend a bit of time with it this week. And yeah, that's an interesting pickup. That's a good addition to the service. A little bit strange that we know that Turf 5 is coming next week, so we've got just an endless stream of races which seem to be popping up in this service lately. But hey, if you're a fan of the genre, it's a good time to be a Game Pass subscriber. That is a fact.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing, it's a lot of racing games at once, and obviously we have to play kind of everything. So I may be feeling the effects of that now, but for people who just play Game Pass, like normal humans, this is all good stuff.
This is good stuff. Okay, so shall we give some brief impressions of Pillars of Eternity 2? Now, neither of us have really spent any time with this. Why would we start a 72, 80-hour game on Thursday, which we're not going to get anywhere near for? I wouldn't even understand the systems before I had to put this down. And I had Persona 5 Strikers to play, man. So you've given it a bit more time than I have. So what have you made of this latest effort in this new kind of RPG series?
Yeah, so I've tried to put a bit of time into this and also just done my research online because, as you said, this is a dense game. This isn't the kind of game you can pick up for a couple of hours and understand it. So, yeah, for people who don't know, Pillars of Eternity and obviously this one, Pillars of Eternity 2, they are kind of old school computer-style RPGs, which is things like Baldur's Gate, for example. These are games that are usually very, very text-heavy. They're practically seen as like the game version of Dungeons and Dragons, like your proper tabletop RPGs with like really deep character building and a ton of world kind of building lore, a ton of characters, and they're just very deep games to get into. And this game has been very well received. It's got a lot of fans, and if you get into it, you are going to be here for minimum 40 hours, probably more like 60 or 70. So it's a good value proposition for people who are interested in these types of games. I just think that from my brief bit of time with it and from, like looking it up online and stuff, I just think that you really need to put aside a lot of time to figure out what this game even is. There's a ton of depth here. The combat and the character building, again, the skill trees are just gigantic. There's a ton of variety in like where you can go with those. The combat has similar systems to Final Fantasy 12, but a lot more elaborate in that you can kind of set up the AI on your team to do specific things in response to things happening. So like if an enemy does a certain type of attack, you can get them to do certain things in response. Or if someone gets poisoned, you can get someone to heal it and stuff. And, you can set up layer upon layer of kind of complex AI stuff to play those characters well for you and stuff like that. And, again, it's clearly a good game, but all of that depth it's a very daunting thing to get into. And I would say as well that Pillars of Eternity 2, it's one of those games where it leads directly on from the original title, and you can either bring in a save file from the original game, or you have that kind of somewhat cumbersome thing where when it starts off, they just ask you what you did in these really big important events in the first game. And I kind of always hate that because you don't have any context for the decisions you're making. You know, it's like I remember doing that in The Witcher. I played The Witcher 3, and it's asking me like if I killed some man, and I don't know if he was good or bad. I don't know anything about it. And I'm like, yeah, I killed him, whatever. I don't know. So I'm not huge on that. You know, at the same time, though, you could just play Pillars of Eternity 1 first. So that's always an option. But yeah, you know, like I said, really, really big game, really good game coming to Game Pass here, but just something that you have to find some time for, really set some time aside to get into this one.
Okay, well, plenty of Pillars of Eternity content now on Game Pass for fans of that series. Want to check out if you're a fan of old school RPGs, certainly one that, should we ever have to get around to completing it, this could be a tail end completion, I imagine, for the both of us. Yeah. We'll certainly feed back in on it then, but let's move on to a game we spent a lot more time with this week, and this is Wreckfest. Now, this is from, I think it's from the Phoenix studio of the Flatout devs. I don't know if it's from that dev studio as they were once named, but the Phoenixes from those flames have come together to basically return to the genre that only they were doing for the past decade. Nobody makes vehicular combat games anymore. And this isn't one a la, you know, a Twisted Metal where you've got weapons on your cars. This is very much a, you just bash into people, you shunt them off the track, and you have a good time. So what have you made of this? This is a real throwback of the racing game, I'd say.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, I came at this quite excited about it because I always used to love the old Destruction Derby games back on like the original PlayStation. They were never particularly great games, but I like a car game where, you know, your goal is to win, but also kind of smash a lot of people up along the way. I think it's good fun. And yeah, you know, it's very hard to make a game like that not fun. So this is instantly enjoyable to play, I would say. You know, the only trouble I have with Wreckfest right now really is that, as we alluded to earlier, this is kind of coming in right in the middle of a lot of higher budget racing games with a lot more behind them. So, you know, it's good that it's at least got a niche of being a destruction racing game instead of just racing, but it does stand out, you know, as people who've been playing stuff like the Dirt series recently, this does stand out as looking and presenting itself far weaker than those games do.
Oh yeah, you can see the lack of budget is very much there. Everything is all perfectly serviceable, but we're not looking at a high-end spit and shine kind of polish to this game. But I knew I was in for a kind of good time with this title. The second I booted up the career mode, and the very first event was get on a tractor and smash up other people on tractors. And I thought, okay, you've kind of got me. You've got me at hello there, Wreckfest, to be honest, because that's deliciously weird to open your game with. Not just like a boring race. They just stick you on a tractor and tell you to go smash folk. And I kind of like that. I like the fact this game has that offbeat sense of humor. I like the fact that there's races where you drive on a sofa, which has been converted into a car. I absolutely adore that. There's loads of these weird little things just dotted about. There's a race I did where I was racing a load of buses in a horse and horses, like kind of a Robin Reliant, and I had the free-wheeled car for those who don't know, and that's just fantastic. I absolutely love that. But there's a lot of weirdness to this game, which I like a lot, and I imagine you kind of dug into that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That race where it's basically, you start in 24th in your free-wheel car, and then you're on like an oval racing circuit against 23 buses, and you have to somehow find the gaps to get through them to win the race. Like, that stuff is fantastic. The Destruction Derby stuff, as you said, whether you're on tractors or there's one later on where it's 24 people in massive like wheat harvesters from like a farm. I felt like I was playing Farming Sim again. It was good. So yeah, just 24 of those smashing each other up. Like, the game has a lot of fun with its kind of premise. You know, it's not afraid to just be like, here's some stupid wacky stuff you can do. And I think it's easily at its best when it's doing that. It does mix in some more traditional racing in there as well. You're typically racing in kind of vehicles that are meant to be crashed around. These are all kind of, banged up old race cars or like big heavy monster trucks or things like that. But when it's trying to be a normal racing game, I think that's when it stands out that, this just isn't going to match up to the more traditional races on the service. But again, yeah, when you're hitting those wacky events, there's a lot of fun to be had here. So I do like having this here as an alternative to the more kind of serious racing games.
You actually hit upon something I was going to mention there, that Wreckfest does feel at its weakest when you are doing standard racing. Yeah. Now, it still tries to pretend that it's still a wreckage game. It'll say you might get points for spinning somebody out or wrecking a car or smashing into them. But unfortunately, to actually win these races, it's best not to do that. If you get too involved in smashing people up, you're going to just keep slipping down the course. You're going to keep slipping back in the pack. It's best to play a Wreckfest race time as a normal racer. And that's just a little bit boring because these cars don't handle fantastically. The engine sounds great. Like they're also high pitched for some unbeknownst reason that's great on me. And as the actual track design itself is fairly dull, the game is at its best when it's moving away from that. And so I was a little bit disappointed to see so many race types of complete 4 races in an entire cup, which is the best way to get points and therefore the best way to advance the career. I ended up doing a lot of them, and all of a sudden I just feel like I'm playing a worse version of Dirt. And that's kind of a frustration for me, because when the game is at its wacky best, it's something unique and utterly different. But when it tries to kind of like lean into more genre standard kind of racing, it kind of falls down for me.
Yeah, that's spot on. I mean, I kind of had a rhythm with this game where I'd unlock a new set of levels and I'd play the fun ones, like the ones we've mentioned there, and I'd be like, "Oh, this game's really fun. I'm having a great time." And then I'd kind of see that I needed about 800 more points to get the next level. So I'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to do like 10 normal races now on normal tracks." And it's just, it feels like you kind of the amount of time you're having fun ends up being less than the time you're kind of grinding through those races in the end, sadly. And I just think that it's a misstep as well to, if you're going to call what you're doing like destruction racing, maybe just make up a different rule set. Don't make it just you have to win the race to get the most points. Why not have a system where, it's really good to win the race, but if you find yourself in the middle of the pack, it's kind of maybe at that point it's more valuable for you to smash up other cars rather than, maybe finishing 5th and not damaging cars is worth less points than finishing like 7th, but you've caused some damage. Like just do something to make it, to incentivize the idea that I should destroy cars, because as you said, in those races, the best way to play them is to get out in front and then just stay away from everyone. And that's completely not what this game is meant to be about.
I imagine you could do something quite fun with an audience meter in this game, because if you're the kind of person who's going to these sort of races, you want to see people smashing stuff up. If somebody's in first place and just driving around like their Schumacher, just completely unfazed by these freakish people and their weird cars, then you're going to boo the heck out of them. You're not going to want them to win. You're going to want them to get smashed up. So I think maybe they could actually balance the scoring with, you get more points perhaps for being an absolute menace on the track than you do for just winning the race. Winning should perhaps be less of an importance in this game than it actually is. But alas, that isn't what they do. And so I do feel it misses those kind of beats. But when the game does go into its wackiest stuff, when you're racing tractors in a figure 8 course and the track overloops and there's always the chance you're just going to fly into somebody else's tractor and smash up, that's great. The actual damage physics are real good in this game. These cars get mangled to heck
they
by
really
the time
do.
you finish them. I love it. I love just seeing them slowly but surely smashed to pieces. I like the fact in the Destruction Derby things, if you don't hit somebody for so long, the countdown will start to say, "Come on, mate, I need you to smash into someone." I love that. I like the fact it's forcing you to not just drive around the outskirts, just hoping to win the race. That's when the game is leaning into its systems and forcing you to play it the way it should be played, which is just smashing heck up. But ultimately, I still think this is a decent time. I think this is a good idea. And I'm glad it exists and I'm glad it's on the service. But I don't know. I finished the first 2 cups and I began to think to myself, do I really want to play any more of this? And I wasn't necessarily sure that I wanted to. Perhaps that's the looming spectre of Dirt 5 on the horizon, just putting me off somewhat. But, and that's kind of a worry because I came into this with pretty high hopes.
Yeah, I was exactly the same. I was like in the first cup, I was having a great time. I was having loads of fun with these wacky events. And then I kind of just went off a cliff with it a bit, it was as the amount of races I was doing where I just needed to, boringly win the race as they built up. I completely was just like, oh, I'm just not interested anymore. Like it went from a game where I was excited at the prospect of, beating all 5 of the championships and, putting a Y on the sheet to say I beat it. I was thinking, oh, it's going to be great. And then, by the second cup, by the time that was done, I was just thought, I might just put this on the shelf for a few months and maybe try and just, grind out an hour of it every now and then, which isn't where I thought I'd be with this game. So definitely a bit disappointed in that, but I am happy it's here. I'm happy it's in Game Pass. I think it offers something completely different to your Dirt games and your Forza games. So I think it's a good game. If you're a racing fan, keep this on your hard drive alongside one of those games, and you can kind of go between them depending on what you feel like doing. I think that's a good idea. But as a game on its own, it's not up to the standard of the other games we've mentioned there.
Yeah, just a slight disappointment, but I'd still recommend people play this. I'd still recommend people give it a go. When it does lean into its wackier side, it's real good time. There's a lot of cars to unlock, loads of upgrades you can do. You can change your paint jobs, all that sort of stuff. That's all great. It's all there. The music is it's terrible. It just loops incessantly, and oh god, it's terrible. But nonetheless, that is what it is. But this isn't a bad game. This is perfectly fine. Give it a go, but perhaps go in with fairly tempered expectations of what you're going to get out of this. A lot of outlets gave this really high scores, so I was pretty hyped for this, and I probably came out of it. I'd be more 6 or 7 on this kind of game rather than the 8s or 9s I saw it being given. But not a bad game by any means. Maybe one to check out if you're a fan of the genre.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I'm also tracking about a 6 for this, maybe a 7 if it really, if it really picks up the rate that it's doing the wacky events as it goes on. But it's in that range for me too.
Okay, so moving on to our leaving soon titles. Now we have 5 games which are set to leave the Xbox Game Pass service. So they're going to be split into 2 because, as we mentioned last week, Dirt 4 did arrive into leaving soon. Apropos of nothing, we had no idea when it would leave. We said it'd be the 25th. Well, it's going to be the 24th. We were a day out. So not too bad. That's not too bad. We also said there was little to no chance that Dirt 5 would come to the service to replace it. And we were completely wrong. Hey. Dirt 5 is arriving on the 25th of February. So if you're not too bothered about completing Dirt 4, just wait until Dirt 5 turns up to replace it.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, to be fair, we discussed the idea that usually when a game leaves last minute, it is because a newer one comes in. But then we completely crushed it. But no, not Dirt 5 though. That's too soon. But there was an element of being right there. We didn't commit to it. That's the problem.
So if you want to hear our thoughts on Dirt 4, do check back to last week's show. It's all there for you. Do give it a listen. But the games which were announced after last week's show and leaving on the 1st of March are the next 4 titles, which is the Jackbox Party Pack 4, Momadora, Reverie Under the Moonlight, Oxenfree, and Vambrace Cold Soul. So what did you make when you saw this little batch of titles?
I mean, I was almost thinking this isn't too bad because Jackbox, which we'll very briefly touch on, that's not a game you can beat, so it's not a game we even count for the sheet. It's a nope title, so that's nice and easy. I'd already played Oxenfree, so that's great. And then I thought, that's only 2 more games, both kind of indie fare, so I wasn't too worried. Vambrace did scare me originally because it had a appallingly long completion time on howlongtobeat.com, but it turns out that I think that's just because barely anyone played it, so there's not that much data on there to give an accurate time. So yeah, not bad. Smaller indie titles, that's always easier for us to get through.
Yeah, I was very much in your boat of fearing Vambrace. I thought this was going to be an absolute nightmare. But as we'll get into our review, some of the hype around its difficulty and cruelty was perhaps overstated, but for reasons we'll once again speak about when we review the game. So this week, we're going to talk about all 4 of them. All 4 will be covered this week because they will have left by the time our next show is out. So we'll get through all of them, let you know if they're worth playing. We'll have a quick overview of Jackbox now. As mentioned, that's a nope game. You can't complete Jackbox. You just play it, and Jackbox is great. The Jackbox series of games are real good, and this one is no different. It's in many ways, it's a bit of a shame that this is leaving, and Jackbox Party 5 isn't coming into the service. I expected it would be announced to be coming in next week, but it hasn't been announced yet. So maybe it's time to sprint out and buy a Jackbox game for your console, because these are a very good game to have for parties.
Yeah, these are great fun. If you've got a good group of people around and you can play some games, they are great. I've spent a lot of time on some of the earlier Jackbox party packs and also on a game called Drawful, which they also make, which is fantastic fun. So yeah, this is good stuff. It's a shame it's leaving Game Pass because obviously, as you said, it's something that's nice to just have in Game Pass to throw on whenever you do have people over, but they'll probably put another one in. This is, when Jackbox 3 left, they put 4 in afterwards. So you probably will get more of this. But yeah, if you've in the next couple of weeks, if you've got a chance to play some games with some people, then by all means give this a download.
Okay, so moving on to Oxenfree. Now, Oxenfree, this is a bit of a strange one for us because we did briefly talk about this all the way back in episode 11 of Beat the Sheet, about 40 minutes in, when we discussed Night School Studios' efforts of After Party and Oxenfree. So we've kind of spoken about this before. So if you do want to go back to that, by all means, check it out. But let's have a brief recap of it. Let's talk about it and whether it's worth playing in these next week, which we have to get through it. And I'd say it absolutely is. This is 7 days. This is a pretty short narrative game, a few simple puzzles, but more than beatable, like more than beatable in a week's time, and quite a good effort as well. I preferred this to After Party, despite the fact After Party probably had a bit more hype around it. I'd say Oxenfree is the better game. I kind of think that you felt the same, right?
Yeah, I absolutely did. I think Oxenfree is a great time. I think the reason that After Party had more hype around it was because they'd made this first. You know, it gave them a bit of a reputation. So yeah, Oxenfree is a great game to be picking up in the next week before it leaves. It's only about 4 hours long. Technically, it's kind of one of the talky-walky games, as we call them. You know, you walk around an area, you talk to the people, and kind of progress the story by doing that. As you said, there is a few puzzles, but the game typically kind of pushes you towards the solution quite well. So you're not going to need to look at a guide or anything to get through this one at all. And yeah, it's a good time. You know, look, I mean, we talked about this a long time ago, way back in August last year. So it's been a while since we've actually spent some time with Oxenfree. But what I do remember is that this game has a fantastic character-like dialogue system. It's got this really clever way that the conversation just flows really well, and you can interrupt it. You can interrupt it at any real point, and the game kind of adapts to you doing that in quite a natural way. And the characters all feel quite relatable, whether they're likable or not. You know, they feel like real characters, which is great. It's got a really fun kind of spooky vibe to it. It's not necessarily a scary game. You won't be, getting any jump scares here, or you won't be terrified of it. But it's got a really, really cool little spooky vibe as you try and figure out this mystery around this island that you've traveled to. And yeah, I just think it's well worth checking out. As Josh said, maybe if you want to hear some thoughts from us when they're a bit fresher, maybe check out episode 11 to find those out. But it's a game I'd definitely recommend you touch on now before it leaves. I gave this a 7 out of 10. I think it's real good.
Yeah, this is one I would say for the Stranger Things fans out there. This has those kind of vibes to it. It's a lot of young people going through difficult times, spooky shenanigans happening in the background. As Andrew said, a fantastic dialogue system, really clever way that they build this into the narrative of the game, and how it changes depending on how even quickly you interrupt somebody is very impressive and very fluid. I like that a lot. A lot of very fun puzzles, nothing too arduous. There's just a lot of very good things happening in Oxenfree. It's a very enjoyable indie title with a fantastic art style, good score, good writing. There's a lot to like here. I gave this a 7 as well. And yeah, I would recommend you pick this up. Certainly out of this batch of Leaving Soon games, it is comfortably the best thing you could be putting your time into right now. So if you haven't played Oxenfree, pick it up and give it a go now would be my recommendation. Okay, so moving though on to the main event reviews of the week. Let's talk about Momadora, Reverie Under the Moonlight, a preposterous title for what is a very simple game. What did you make of this? This is a Metroidvania, but it's absolutely also not a Metroidvania, would be my thesis on this title. What would you say?
Yeah, that's pretty fair. I mean, this is, it sounds weird, but this is almost just a straight up Castlevania than a Metroidvania, and you can see that in the fact that, they've done that annoying thing everyone has to do where they have to make their title sound like Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Like anyone who makes one of these games, they go, we need 4 words after the first word to make it look like it's Symphony. It's just what they all do. Bloodstained did it as well. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. They insist on doing this. But nonetheless, yeah, this is a fairly fun, very compact game. It's, as you said, it's got elements of Castlevania / Metroidvania in that you work through a big, the world takes place in this big map, and as you go through it, you unlock different areas on that map. You'll get new skills that can help you get to other parts of the map and things like that. But there's not really any massive exploration here. Everything's pretty kind of gated off, isn't it? Like you pretty much have to go a set way. You have to go through areas in a specific order, and then you get a power that will allow you to go to the next one. There's not any real time where I felt like I was going to go off the beaten path and explore and find, loads of new power-ups or alternative routes to do things. It's pretty straightforward, but as a title that's leaving Game Pass, I have no problems with something being straightforward and quite short. So I'm happy overall here.
It's such a weird title as this one, because as mentioned, you do have this big map to explore and areas you need to get different abilities to visit, but yet there's not actually that many areas you need the upgrade to visit. Most of the upgrades are utterly useless. Most of them revolve around you gaining powers for your bow, which you wouldn't use in a million years, even if you have to, because it's functionally useless. And the other one is a dash attack in the air, which is never at any point used for platforming beyond a very late game stage. The only real power up you need in this game is the cat one. That's pretty much it. The cat one is the only time they gate off areas to you. So you kind of feel like it's going to be a Metroidvania, Castlevania, but in many ways it's just a big map which you can visit a lot of initially, and the minute you get the cat power up, you can visit pretty much all of. It's a very strange way that it doles out its power ups. But there's still a lot to like here. It's a very simple game. There's not too much to it. The combat is one button sort of stuff with a dodge roll to avoid enemy attacks. You know, you're not going to struggle to pick it up. You're going to pick it up and learn it very quickly. I don't know. I just felt it was a little bit slight. I didn't feel like I got a lot of satisfaction out of this game. I felt like it was almost like a demo, as a demo disc to say we can make something better. Just give us the money and we'll flesh this out. Except it never will be fleshed out. It is what it is. This is the game. So it's kind of strange. I found this a bit of an odd playthrough.
Yeah, that's entirely fair. I mean, if I was coming to this from the angle of, maybe I'd actually bought the game or something, I probably would be a little disappointed that it is a very slim package. I mean, I completed 100% of this map. So I went to every single room and I fought like every boss and stuff in, I think it was about 4 hours, maybe just very slightly over. And that's even factoring in the fact that the opening hour of this game is actually quite difficult. So you will hit a few roadblocks early on and then the difficulty kind of levels out. So, if it wasn't for the fact I was struggling there as well, you're probably looking more like 3 hours of gameplay than 4, which is incredibly small. But at the same time, I just quite like, you're walking around the maps in this room, but you check the map screen to see that you've completed 48% of the map or something. You do a few more rooms, it's at 52%. I don't know. I find it quite satisfying to quickly get that map completion percentage to 100 and beat the game. So in the context of a free game that's in Game Pass, I'm quite happy with it. But I think if you did pay money for it, you would be a bit like, where is the rest of my game?
Yeah, I can get that. It's obviously for us trying to beat the sheet. Anything where the numbers are ticking up quickly, we're going to have a massive grin on our face because it's coming to an end sooner. You're right to mention it does have a tricky opening. The opening hour to this game is somewhat awkward. It's not unbeatable, but it's finicky. And the checkpoints eventually start to sparse themselves a lot closer, but at that starting kind of areas, they're a bit more few and far between. The difficulty is almost entirely caused by one projectile enemy, which can just go die in a ditch. Everybody else is actually quite manageable, and you learn their patterns. There's just one enemy which can just fuck off. Basically, it's just infuriatingly annoying. I couldn't stand it. Yeah. But once you do get past that opening hour, the game does ease off quite significantly. You will not struggle to finish it once you hit that point. You mentioned your playtime of 4 hours. I think I had a similar one. I was about 4.5 hours for 100% as well. But my main bugbear of this game is that it's very easy to get lost in this game. For such a small map, it's not lost in the sense of you don't know where you are. It's a lost in the sense of I don't know where to go. Because a lot of the platforms you can jump down through in the old-fashioned way of 2D platformers are just tiny little lines on the bottom of the screen, practically obscured by anything. You wouldn't know it's there. I spent 45 minutes looking to try to find this one tiny platform, which I'd completely missed because I thought that it was a blocked off road because there was a big high ledge I couldn't climb. It turns out I was meant to drop down. I didn't notice it. It took me 45 minutes to figure it out. And it was just a bloody nightmare, to be honest. That's the last thing you need in these sort of games because the enemies respawn. You have to go through the whole rigmarole again of getting back to where you are. You start to get bored of the level design. So Momadora kind of lost me just by virtue of the fact I got lost. So maybe I can blame myself for that. But the minute that happened to me, I was really starting to get irked off with this game. I really wasn't having a good time.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, it is quite difficult sometimes to see where those kind of extra routes through the levels are. I mean, if you go on the map, you can just about see, like, because the kind of, let's say you can travel down through an area, there'll be a small little gap in that square on the map that shows that you could go down, but it's not very clear. You only you only really spot them if you're like looking on the map really closely, square to square, to kind of figure out where could I possibly go next. And maybe a bit of signposting would have improved that quite a bit. I was lucky enough to not get lost there. I must have just jumped down that one without noticing that. I must have just did it and it was fine. But on the whole, yeah, it is a bit frustrating when you can't see where to go. I did have those frustrations when I was trying to finish completing the map, because I literally couldn't see a single area on the map that I hadn't been. And then it was just, these tiny little squares with little dots to show that I could have gone down in them and stuff. So yeah, there was improvements they could have made to that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think part of the other problem as well is that the platforming in this game, I wasn't a massive fan of it. I felt it was a little floaty at times, and that it was very easy to just twitch yourself off a platform. And if you land in a pit of spikes in this game, you're gone, you're done. It's an instant death, which is somewhat frustrating when you need to go all the way back to a bell, which are the checkpoints to try again. You've got to go past all the bosses and the bad guys, or at least the regular enemies, to get to it again. That was somewhat irksome. I never quite got a grip with the platform, and I never quite felt comfortable with it. I remember late game stages where I was scraping by on a little fraction of health, and a series of platforms appeared, and I thought, oh God, I'd rather have 12 enemies than these tiny, tiny platforms you have to pixel perfect jump onto, because if you do overshoot or you undershoot, it's very hard to readjust on the fly. It's not hugely responsive, quite twitchy in its own little way. So that kind of irked me as well. And the combat itself is perhaps a little bit one-dimensional. There's not a lot here. You swing with your big leaf, which I like. I like the fact it's a big leaf. That's pretty funny. And other than that, you've got an arrow, but you'll never use it beyond standing on the edge of the screen and just firing into the distance and hoping for the best, because it might kill something. On the whole, though, you won't use that. You're just going to swing this leaf, and you've kind of played the game after 15 minutes of it. You've kind of got the feel for Momadora after 15 minutes. I mean, it just drags that out for 4 hours. So it makes even 4 hours feel quite long, which is a kind of a tough thing to do when you got something this short, which feels so slight. To make it drag out is quite impressive.
Yeah, that's fair. I to be honest, I didn't have too many issues with the combat. I mean, it is simple. Basically there's one combo you're going to do by mashing the X button a few times. And, the most of the bosses amount to just knowing the right time to cancel out that combo and dodge away from attacks, or like the right time to duck and jump to get over their attacks and stuff. And I think that's kind of the only place where there's any real depth to the combat is figuring out the patterns of the bosses to sort of know the right time to do stuff, which, I guess that's pretty slight, but also, it's a pretty small game. I wasn't necessarily sick of the combat by the end. I thought it did the job for as long as the game lasted. I would say if the game was even 2 or 3 hours longer, I'd be completely sick of it though. So it's not good enough for a longer game.
Yeah, this is just one of those sort of titles. Like I said, it's fine. There's some perfectly decent boss designs where you do need to pick up the patterns, know when to dodge. As you say, cancel out of that one combo, and you've only got a moment you can cancel out of that combo. So there's not much in the way of thinking there. You just, you're going to have to stop because something's going to screw you. It's fine. The enemy designs are fine. The game itself looks okay. It's not terrible. I quite like the music. I will say, I think the music's pretty good. I think the music's actually quite nice in this. I like the score to this game. And the story itself is fine. It's kind of got like a Dark Souls-y sort of what's gone on in this town vibe, which is kind of cool, I suppose, in its own little way. It's ultimately playable, but I don't really know why you would, which is perhaps the most damning indictment I can make of this game. It exists. It's fine, but I wouldn't play it.
Yeah, that's pretty reasonable. It's a game that it's fine to have to play through it. If you have to because you're us, or you have some other stupid reason why you have to play it, then you're not going to completely hate your time with it. But there's no reason why I would tell you to play this over, Castlevania or a Metroid game, or even we played a similar game to this. It was Toho Lunar Nights, which is in Game Pass, and that's another 4-hour long game of this exact style, but it's a much better game. The combat in that's much slicker, much faster. It's just all around better. So there's even better small Metroidvania titles in Game Pass anyway. So I don't think this is going to be missed, but I also think it's a perfectly adequate game. I came out of this giving it a 6 out of 10. I think it's all right. It's not bad.
Yeah, I ended up giving this a 5. It's dead in the middle. It's ban average. As you mentioned, Toho Lunar Nights is better small game. Hollow Knight is just significantly better for, your big Metroidvania kind of map game, as is Bloodstained. So there's better options on the service, but if you do have that completionist urge, it won't take you long to beat. If you want to pick it up and give it a go, by all means. But I couldn't really give this a hearty recommendation, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, let's move on to our next game, Vambrace Cold Soul. Now, this is a title I read the reviews describing it as punishingly difficult, and one person saying they couldn't even make it past the first map. And I thought, oh God, this is going to be hell. And there was a lot of mentions of my most hated word, roguelike, which also put me on edge. But Vambrace Cold Soul, when you actually do play it, I don't really know what this game is. It isn't a roguelike, not really. It's got very few of the qualities of it. It's not really a strategy game because there isn't any. It's not really an RPG because there's no RPG elements. I have literally no idea what this game is trying to be. Can you give it any form of definition?
I mean, it is all of those things, but I think, but at the most basic level, like there's elements of roguelike, but they're only chapter to chapter. So like it's a 7-chapter game and you have to go out and do the mission in that chapter in one go. And, if you don't make it, then you start back at the town and you have to go to the end again. But once you finish the chapter, you're fine. That's done. You can move on. You don't need to do anything again there. And even you even keep all of your items and money and stuff from runs where you fail. So I guess that's more roguelite than roguelike. But even so, yeah, it's not a roguelike really. It wants to be a turn-based RPG to an extent with its combat, but as you said, there's very, very little depth here. You pick a few characters to join your team who go out on the mission, and they all have a basic attack and a couple of skills, but there's nothing to it. It's very, very simple, very bare bones. It'd be fine as a small part of a game, but it's such a big part of this game that it just doesn't do enough at all. And yeah, I mean, frankly, you spend most of your time in this game just walking left to right across a bunch of kind of dull screens until the game tells you you've reached the boss. That's what you spend most of your time doing. So if there's a name for that genre, for walking left to right and being bored shitless until the game ends, then let me know what that genre is, because that's what this is.
Yeah, Vambrace, as you mentioned, Vambrace is a very simple game. And yet it's also, and there's no other word to describe it, it's an absolute clusterfuck of a game. Because the opening 5 minutes of Vambrace, it throws so much information at you, so many systems and menus and ideas, all just there. And it's all on the screen as well. Oh. Everything is on the screen. The UI in this is an absolute nightmare. For some reason, somebody at this Dev Espresso, the devs of this game, decided every button on the controller must be needed at all times, or apparently their children would be thrown into a pit or something. Because everything, all the menu options are tied to a button for no real reason. And I don't really understand it. It tries to explain its systems, which aren't that complicated, in the most dense and complicated way possible, for no reason, whilst leaving out the information you actually need to play the game properly. It's an absolute mess of game design for that first hour. Once you, the player, figure out what is going on, that settles down a little bit. But that's no thanks to the development. That's just because you've stuck with it long enough to kind of understand what it's doing. You could go into this game, and if you were solely reliant on the information they gave you, you would be screwed, because it is terrible at laying out that information.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the worst games in terms of a completely ineffective tutorial that I've ever seen. Like, I saw these tutorial windows because I played the first like half an hour of this on an evening once, and then I didn't come back to it until the next day. And I kind of left it for that evening thinking, I don't even know how I'm going to understand what this game is. Like, because it was just wall after wall of giant wordy text boxes full of all these different details. And I just thought, there's no way I'm going to figure this out well enough to scrape through this. And then about 1 hour later, when I'm playing it the next day, I'm like, this is all incredibly simple. There's actually nothing really going on. It's I don't know how they managed to take such a simple set of gameplay rules and confuse me with them when they were trying to help. It's baffling. And as you said, yeah, the UI is an absolute train wreck. I mean, the bottom area of the screen looks like trying to select a character on Smash Bros. Ultimate now that there's like 180 characters. Like, it's literally a mess. There's no way of knowing what any of those icons mean. And every button on the controller seemingly brings up a different menu, to the point where you'll inevitably do something stupid. I was in a boss fight in one chapter in this game, and I pressed like left on the D-pad, and I'd meant to press right on the D-pad. And what left on the D-pad did was just made my strongest fighter run away and not be a part of the battle for the rest of the fight. So, because I was trying to press right, which I think brings up his skills, which is a different thing to what up and down do on the D-pad and what the bumpers do. And it's like, what the, like, there was no need for them to like spread out the UI and the commands across this many buttons. It's absolutely insane. It feels like it wants you to just be sat at a PC where you can physically click the icons on the screen. And even that I wouldn't like, because there's still too many icons. But yeah, absolute train wreck. And then, yeah, as we said, what this game ends up devolving down into, once you understand it, is each chapter comes with one mission. And in that mission, you get your little team of free fighters and your main character. And you just you have to walk through these areas to get to a boss area. But each area is you just walk left to right through a really generic scene that you'll see about 50 to 60 times per mission. You just walk through a room, and one event will happen in that room, and it'll either be there'll be a campfire so you can rest and get some health back, or there'll be a shop man where you can buy stuff. There'll be a fight, or there'll be a kind of event where you have to make a decision and something good or bad will happen. As far as I can see as well, there's only about 4 different types of event, so you'll see the same event a million times through this game. They'll inexplicably be like dog. Yeah, there'll be Ghost Dog. There'll inexplicably be a table full of food in the middle of this destroyed place. That'll happen a lot. It's just, there's just nothing here. There's absolutely no content, really. You just walk left to right, trudging along at a very slow pace, trying to make it to the boss room so you can fight the boss and end the chapter. And you do that like 6 times, and then the game ends. There's nothing to it at all.
It's really frustrating. I mean, you mentioned the roguelike elements of this, and it is that you have to restart the chapter should you fail on a run. But the actual dungeons themselves, they might take you 30 minutes to walk through. It's not really that long. For like a roguelike loss of progression, that's pretty short. It don't take you long to get back to where you were. And you don't really lose anything. The only way to, tailor your characters. You mentioned that you select these 3 people. You do. You select from 3 different classes. There's about 9 classes to pick from, about 5 of which are any use. So you're only really going to pick the same 3 every single time. And if they die, they die. But then you just get another one. You just pick another dude, and they come along. And you just buy them back the relic, which is the only way to tailor them in the game, is by attaching these relics to them. You just buy it back and stick it back on them again, and that's it. That's not a massive loss of progression, and it's deeply unsatisfying for a role-playing game situation, because the stats never change. They're as strong in the first dungeon as they are in the last dungeon, which means the enemies you face all have the same health bar all the way along. Nothing really ever changes. You play the first chapter of this game, and nobody's any stronger or weaker by the end of it. You've just figured out how to play it. That's literally it. Even your main character, you can only upgrade her experience points, or perk points as they call them, about 5 times. And that's it. Tailor your character. And again, there's only about 3 which are of any use. You're just not going to use most of these progression points. Yeah. It's just mind-bogglingly basic and boring and simple, and so unsatisfying when you actually go into combat knowing that nothing's really changed. You've not improved. You've not got stronger, really. You're the same character you were at the very start of the game. You've just been able to buy something slightly better from the camel dude. And that's nice. Great. Good for the camel dude. He's making a roaring trade. But I don't really understand this game. I don't understand how they made something so deeply unsatisfying at its very core. That's bizarre. It's weird game design.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's the thing, when we said about the tutorial being overly complex for what this game is, it's because the game acts as though there's going to be a lot going on here. All the characters have different stats here, and you've got like an awareness stat, which that helps you avoid traps, because what this game will do all the time is as you walk left to right, it will just randomly just bring up a message saying there's a trap there and it's hit you and you're all terrified now or something. And if you have someone with good awareness, then they might avoid it. So that's one start. Another one is Overwatch, which lets you get more health back when you camp. So, there's a couple of little stats like that, but they're very simple, and yet they make it seem like there's going to be a lot of, depth and different decisions to make. But in truth, all you do is you just bring one person with you who has enough awareness to avoid the traps. You bring one person who's good enough at the camping thing, and you're all set. That's it. You'll make that decision once at the start of the game, and you will just use those characters until you reach the end of the game. That's it. There's nothing else to do with it. You don't go on different missions and think, oh, this mission I might need, people who are better at avoiding traps. Like, no, every mission you just need one person to do that and one person to do the other thing. That's it. It's so simple.
Vambrace is a very good example of a game which has too many numbers in the background. There's too many calculations of chance happening behind the scenes. Now, a lot of games do this. All games are numbers and chances and rolls of the dice to an extent. But Vambrace really embraces that. Like, you're walking on, you hit a trap. As you say, if you have a 4 awareness stat, you'll probably avoid it. But sometimes you won't, and it doesn't really make any sense. It's a dice roll. Like, there's no real way to know which are going to hit you and which are not. In games, when you're fighting people, sometimes the enemy will block. You don't know why. They just sometimes block. Yeah. And they'll usually block at the worst possible time, despite never blocking all the way through. The one moment you need them to not, they'll do it. And it's really annoying because there's no real logic for it. It just happens. And you can't see all this UI on the screen. They don't give you the numbers, which would actually be useful to see what damage you will do to somebody. You never know what damage you're really going to inflict to somebody. You never know how much health the other person's got. All these numbers are just hidden in the background of the game, I assume for what they considered was immersion. But all it really does is give you this feeling of bullshit, which is just happening to you at all times. That is, the game just thrives upon. Just a random status effect happens to you. And the status icon is so tiny. I never worked out what each of them meant. I've got all these potions in my backpack and I'm trying to match up the symbol and I can't make it out. I just couldn't make it. I just left them. I guess they've got a fractured leg now. I can't fix it. I don't know what's happening. It does this all the time and it's infuriatingly stupid.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. Like, as you said, there's statuses ranging from like fractured to terrified to frostbitten. And like one of my characters would get frostbitten and I'd be like, I literally don't know what that affects. Like, I've all of it is a tiny little symbol on my screen that shows God knows what. And I don't know. I'm just going to keep playing and I don't know. If it's enough of a problem, we'll probably die and I'll figure out why we died. But there's no indication of what that is on the game, like as far as I can tell, short of just go into Google and asking what the hell it is. You're not going to find out. And also you don't need to find out apparently because it's just fine. But yeah, it's just a messy game. And to go back actually as well, you were saying about how there's, this complete lack of progression in the game. And, you pretty much have the same standard of team at the start as the end. So I can absolutely vouch for that because what my game decided to do is I was fighting the chapter 6 boss, and this game is a 7-chapter game. And the game crashed, which, games crash. It's fine. I'm not gonna rip a game apart for crashing. It just happens. So I load the game back up anyway, and it's like, right, do you want to continue your game? I'm like, yeah, sure. It's like, all right, there you go. You're in chapter 2 and your save is from 2 days earlier. And I was like, no, like it's not. I've definitely been saving this game all the time. The game even brings up a thing on the screen all the time to say it's saving. But nah, I was back in chapter 2 with my chapter 2 equipment. So, but luckily this game has a level select cheat thing you can use. So I thought, right, well, I'm not playing from here again. I'm just going to use the level select to get back to where I was, and I'll just play the game from there. So I use that, but I don't have any of the stuff that I've been using. So I've lost all of my relics to equip to people. I'm now just back to whatever I had in chapter 2. And I still managed to beat the game because there's no progression. It's fine. Like in the sort of 5 hours of content that I've technically lost there by my save data going away, none of my characters got any better, and none of the enemies got particularly more difficult, except for like the odd boss maybe. So I just jumped into the end of the game with my chapter 2 team, and we just did it. We just won anyway, because literally you don't achieve anything throughout the entire course of this game. It's just, it's poor. It's disappointing. The only saving grace here is that this is nowhere near as long as we'd saw online. Yeah, we'd heard this was going to be 19 hours, and in truth, I think it's more like about 7, or even less. So that's something. That's the only saving grace I have for this game. But I would definitely not tell anyone to play it. That's for sure.
No, this is a real bad game. Like, it's silly, it's tedious. The combat system is real dull, really basic. It never develops upon itself. The health system is never explained to you. You've got health and vigor is constantly training. And the only way to build it up is to go to a campfire where you need to roll a dice to see if you'll get it back again or to drink a health tonic. It's the only time I died in this game was because nobody told me that if vigor went to 0, that I would die. And I had no clue. It's the only time I lost any characters was when that happened. And that's because they never told me it, because the crappy tutorial never explained it. I thought vigor was what I used to use special attacks. I had no idea until I eventually figured it out.
It's it will have been buried somewhere, but on one of those 50 text boxes, there will have been a single sentence about it. But there's only so much text box you can read, especially when you haven't even played the game yet. So you have no context for what they're telling you. You're just not going to keep that information. I
mean, there is a story here. It's fantasy. It's definitely fantasy. It's one of those fantasy stories which decides it's going to use all the buzzwords it humanly possibly can instead of trying to tell a story. It's just going to talk about all these weird events which have happened to all these weird people. And you're not really going to know what's happening, because to do that, you'd have to read through the codex entries, and fuck that. There's just no chance. Am I doing that? I'm not reading the in-depth writing of this team, which couldn't even write a tutorial, let alone a codex entry. And it's just tedious all the way through. There's endless boxes of dialogue. I never really know what happens. I got this bizarre ending, which made little to no sense to me, apart from the fact I knew the game was over, so I was overjoyed. It said I went the middle way. Did I? I don't know. I don't know how I went the middle way, but I somehow did.
I had even less context for my ending, because I had to, I lost my entire save file and then just had to skip to the end, and it just decided on choices for me and that. So I don't even know what my ending was about. But yeah, as you said, there's some kind of story. Everyone lives underground. The world's full of ice. Your character has some glove that makes her be able to get rid of this ice stuff that kills people. And she goes out and finds some people. That's all I'm going to tell you, because that's all I know. That's all I've got for you. So yeah, just Vambrace, not a game to seek out, not a game to play through before it leaves Game Pass. Just let it leave Game Pass and just be happy that, as it leaves, Game Pass is a better service, really. So
the service is better for its passing. Yeah, Vambrace is a bad game. It's not a good game. It's not very fun to play through. The only props I can give it is, I guess, the art style is pretty good. Yeah. Whoever's doing the art for this world, it's fine. Those screens may be generic because it's all randomly generated, but they're nicely drawn, I guess. It looks nice enough to play through. The music's horrible. Just to throw that out there. Have you managed to figure out why this game starts? Whenever you press the play game button on the main menu, it does this big orchestral rise. And then it's like a toddler just starts slamming on the keyboard. It just goes, dun, 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 and it's completely out of tune. And it goes out of tune all the time. There's so many times it's just slamming on the keyboard like an angry dog. Just doesn't understand what is happening. It's awful.
I mean, I ended up being too terrified of turning the game off after losing 4 chapters of data. So I only ever saw that screen 2 times. I just kept the game on for the rest of the time till it was done. But yeah, not a good soundtrack at all. I agree that the art is decent enough, but yeah, I mean, I gave this a 3 out of 10, and I'm being generous, really. I think this is real bad, and any game that just swallows like 75% of your playthrough save data for no apparent reason, I'm not going to give a good score to, simply enough. So yeah, 3 out of 10 from me.
And I gave this a 4 out of 10, perhaps solely because of the groan sound effect, which plays constantly throughout every battle, which made it seem like I was listening to hardcore pornography for about 7 hours straight to my neighbors. So shout out to that groan, because sometimes the groan happens and the music cuts out and all you can hear is and I was like, well, I guess I'm fucking all day and got into this game.
I mean, that groan, or at least your impression of that groan, is also a good alternative to my 3 out of 10 score. If someone asks you how good Vambrace is, just go, that's how good it is. It's just that. All right, then. So time to wrap up the show this week with, the lightning round. But before that, we've got a bit of non-lightning related news first. So let's start this off with a bit of info on BlizzCon, which has been going on, which is the big Blizzard version of E3, because they feel like they need their own one. And yeah, they've been doing that online over the last week. And, we thought, let's touch on a couple of highlights from it. Nothing major, but the first thing was that they did finally announce that Diablo 2 remaster that everyone apparently has been asking for, despite the fact that I don't know anyone who's asking for it. So yeah, that's coming out. My main takeaways from this, I don't know how much of you've looked at, but it's just a remaster. It's not a big from the ground up remake. You can clearly see that this is an old game with a coat of paint on it. So maybe that satisfies the fans of the original, but I'm not sure that gives newcomers much of a reason to dive in. Although I will say they're doing that thing that I really like, which is where you can, at the press of a button, go between old style and new style graphics. Always love when remasters do that. So that's something at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's Diablo 2, isn't it? I mean, you can get it on your Switch now. That's going to cost a lot of people a lot of time. So yeah, I don't know if that's the kind of thing that excites you. Then by all means, I get my kicks out of groans on Vambrace. So who am I to judge?
Yeah, I mean, if we can get that grown in Diablo 2, you'll be on board. Just 40 hours of just every single attack, just it'd be great. You'll have a lovely time. But yeah, so Diablo 2 Remaster was in there. There was some news on Overwatch 2 that simply I'm not going to bore you all with. I spent 40 minutes watching them talk about Overwatch 2. It was relatively interesting to me. It's not interesting to anyone else. That game's kind of like a half step between a proper sequel and like a yearly Call of Duty update. It's going to be the same game. There's just new maps and modes and stuff like that. So yeah, if you like Overwatch 2, check it out. But if you don't, you're not going to care. So yeah, the main thing that really happened at BlizzCon that is worth looking at though is there was a live Metallica show, which they aired on Twitch because that was where BlizzCon was being shown because it's all online this year. And yeah, so the Metallica show ran into some DMCA copyright issues. So after about 30 seconds of Metallica playing some of their hits, Twitch just went over it with what I can only describe as kind of royalty-free Super Nintendo music for the rest of the entire live performance, which is just absolutely worth seeking out. Apparently, like, it wasn't entirely a problem. Apparently on Blizzard's own stream, they obviously had the rights to show it, but Twitch themselves didn't. So yeah, so Twitch had to panic and just go over it with this dreadful old royalty-free RPG style music, which obviously you've still got the entire like band rocking out on the screen, but you're just hearing these little just plinks and plonks of some little chilled out SNES tunes. So that's worth seeking out. That's undoubtedly the highlight of BlizzCon this year.
I'm just gonna throw it out there. Best gig they've ever played. Loved it. Absolutely loved every second of it. Yeah. I didn't know the key to fixing Metallica was to not hear Metallica. So there we go. Well done to Twitch and their bold, forward-thinking approach to Metallica concerts. I can get behind them. Now, if only they could do it to all concerts. That would be fantastic.
I would like to watch more concerts be dubbed over at a random time with this music. Just, don't let them know when it's going to be. Keep them on the toes, and then just a few minutes in, just suddenly just hit them with the royalty-free SNES tunes, and I'll just watch it like that. It's great. It's just
You think you're going to get the big drop in that Diplo concert you spent all your time building up to, and then it's just the theme from Super Mario World. It's like, oh no, I guess that's good too.
Yeah, it'll do.
It's got to go ham, as the kids used to say to some old school SNES. Yeah, that was pretty funny. I liked that. I enjoyed that.
That was good stuff. It made it worth having a BlizzCon this year because, I mean, BlizzCon's a community event, really. It seemed pointless having it online, but not anymore. Now it has a purpose. But anyway, okay, so let's move on to the Nintendo Direct. As we said, this is the first Nintendo Direct in over 500 days. I think it was 531 days eventually had passed before this happened. So very much glad to see Nintendo Directs back and not just the smaller kind of mini Directs. This was a real one. It's a proper Direct, 50 minutes of content and new games. So our plan is to tackle this in the lightning round, which we've done a few times on the show before. The lightning round is basically we give ourselves 1 minute on a clock to talk about each game. And once that minute's up, we have to move on. So, it's a real equal opportunity setup. We don't care if you're Zelda or Stubbs the Zombie. You all get the equal amount of time. You get your 1 minute, and we'll talk about it for that long. But before we get to that, we have taken in some kind of smaller announcements, mainly like DLC content and also games that we already knew about, taking those away from the lightning round. So they're in this before the storm segment before we get to the lightning. So let's roll in with those first. So first thing then is they showed some footage from the now released Capcom Arcade Collection, which is now out on Switch and Xbox and pretty much everywhere. This is just a collection of old Capcom games, a lot of old shmup games. There's some Street Fighters 2 stuff in there. Yeah, just a bunch of old games. You can buy them in separate packs for $14.99 each, which it's not an awful deal. I think you get about 10 games in the pack for that money, so not bad.
Yeah, I will buy this eventually. It's going to happen. I just need to wait until there's a sale.
Yeah.
And then, we'll give it a go. But I like the look of this. I love buying big retro collections, which I'll never play. I do it all the time. I own like pretty much all the Sega Ages collection. The only one I've played is Pure 2, because of course it is. Of course that's the only one I've played.
I have a set rhythm with these things, which is they come out, I wait until they're half off, I buy them, and then I never play them. That's the rhythm. Do it every time. I'll do it again here. One thing I do quite like about this set actually as well, at least with the Switch, is a lot of the kind of old shmup games where, you've got your plane and you're flying around. They're all in a vertical orientation. And on the Switch, I think you can hold your Switch vertically to play them. So like that's kind of fun. You just kind of, if you can handle holding the weight of an entire Switch vertically while you play on the Joy-Con at the bottom of the screen, then that's something you can do, which is pretty fun. So that's nice. But yeah, moving on, another game that had already been announced is Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection, the kind of reimagining of Ghouls and Ghosts from the SNES era. This is out this week, February 25th, and looks like trash, Josh, doesn't it? It doesn't look good.
I mean, look, this has its audience, I'm sure, but I'm not a massive fan of the original franchise. I've played it because it's in every retro collection on every console, seemingly. I think I own about 6 different versions of Ghouls and Ghosts now across the TurboGrafx, NES, and Mega Drive. But look, it's one of those franchises. It's obnoxiously difficult. I'm sure this will be as well, but I don't know why you'd want to play this nowadays. Like, hasn't this kind of game had its time? What do you really want to say? A HD version of Ghosts and Goblins? No, you don't. Deep down, you don't.
Yeah, no one wants it. It has a really uninspiring art style, this new one as well. I don't like the look of it, but nonetheless, it's happening. If you want it, it is out this week on the 25th of Feb. Another game that's about to be out is Bravely Default 2. They showed a trailer for this. This is out February 26th. If you're a Bravely Default fan, you probably already got this on your calendar. This is a, big Japanese RPG. And it's out soon. I don't know why they felt the need to put a trailer in the show for this, considering it's out in about a week, but nonetheless.
It's nice to know it still exists. I own the 2 games on DS, or 3DS, should I say, but I've yet to play them, but maybe I will do. I'll buy this, but will I ever play it? Probably not.
Nah, that's how we do things here. And last previously announced game we're covering here is just Monster Hunter Rise, because they showed another trailer for this, but I mean, Monster Hunter Rise has got a lot of coverage over the last couple of months. I don't know why they felt the need to show something here. There's even a demo out you can play. So, Monster Hunter Rise, March 26th. It's just more Monster Hunter. Is what it is. If you like Monster Hunter, you probably already plan on getting this. I do like that they seem committed to making separate Monster Hunter games for different consoles, which I think is good, rather than trying to like crush Monster Hunter World down to work on the Switch. I think this is a better solution. So that's good.
Yeah, I think the game looks fantastic. I just can't play Monster Hunter games. So, I wish I could. I really do, because I think it looks brilliant. But, it's a big one. These games usually play best on Nintendo consoles for whatever reason. They seem to come out with the best versions on Nintendo platforms. So, I'd be pretty excited about this if I was a fan of the franchise, but I won't be playing it, I'm afraid.
Yeah, same here pretty much. Okay then, right, let's move on to some DLC type announcements before we get to the lightning. So first one here, probably the biggest one, is that the new Smash Bros. Characters got announced, and they are Pyra and Mithra, who are from Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So they're one fighter, and you can switch between them like you can with Zelda and Sheik. They can do that too. So that kind of thing. And look, more Smash characters. That's great. This isn't a series I've ever got round to. I want to, because I hear the games are great, but not played these ones. But there you go, more characters.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I messaged you pretty much straight after this direct. I think we've hit critical mass with Smash Bros. Characters. I think we've got enough. And I don't want to be the one to say it, but I feel like 80 characters or whatever it is now is probably enough fighters in a fighting game. But, if you're a big fan of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, love the Yorkshire dude all over that trailer. I mean, God. that is a classic Sean Bean sort of stereotype Yorkshire accent, and I am completely here for it. So yeah, more of that, please. Get him in the game. just throwing out brilliant Yorkshire expressions all the way through, like a bit of e-by gum or something like that. Brilliant. Love that dude.
He absolutely killed me in this, because like I'm sure when you play the game you get used to it, but like the rest of the cast seems to be completely traditional JRPG voice actors, which is, usually American accents, or if they're British accents, they're usually like the posh accent, right? Like the voice actress for Zelda in Breath of the Wild, it's always that posh British accent. So to hear all those types of characters, and then this guy's just like, I thought I were going to be in Smash, and you're like, what is happening here? Jesus Christ.
That was an abysmal attempt at a Yorkshire accent.
I mean, it was an attempt at Rex's voice in this game, which is about right, but
which is also an abysmal attempt.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
So,
but yeah, I mean, he just sounds so out of place. It's hilarious. But yeah, I kind of agree. I think Smash has enough characters, but I do at least think it's good that they're keeping. I'd rather them keep these characters in their own studios. I think Smash at its core should be a celebration of Nintendo. So I'd rather see, even though they're not characters from games I know, I'd rather see characters from Xenoblade and ARMS than just some complete random out of the blue third party character that's never had a Nintendo connection. There's a thin line now between celebration of gaming that Smash Brothers is and just the kind of lifeless husk that Fortnite is becoming, where they just insist on having literally any pop culture reference in the game now, and it's just there's no real heart behind that. So I'd rather Smash keeps it internal, keeps their own characters in as much as possible. But
that's the thing, isn't it? Because Fortnite, if they had their way, Jackie Weaver would be turning up to shoot a load of folks. So let's be grateful that Smash hasn't introduced her as the next fighter.
There'd be a whole level based on it. You'd have to be a level where if you found the standing orders, you'd get like extra power as long as you could read them and understand them. It would just.
Oh God, we're so out of date. Okay,
I mean, I'd play it, but still.
So would I.
Next thing. Mario items are coming to Animal Crossing. So February 25th, going to be a bunch of Mario stuff coming to Animal Crossing, like costumes like Mario, Luigi, Peach costumes, a bunch of different scenery from Mario levels. Probably the coolest one is you can get warp pipes, so you can just set warp pipes around your island and jump in them to get to the other side and stuff. So that's pretty great. This might tempt me to load up Animal Crossing again. I've not turned that game on in about half a year now, so yeah, we'll see. But this is cool stuff.
I can't load up my Animal Crossing island. I dread to think what it's become.
Just weeds everywhere.
It's gonna be like Chernobyl, just like the poor pigeon just crawling on the ground. Isabel's eaten Tom Nook. Timmy and Tommy have merged together into one being to survive longer. I just can't. I can't face it. I don't think putting a warp pipe is gonna forgive the 9 months of neglect I've showed those people. So probably not the best one for me to pick up, even though I do think it looks cool. Seems like the items are slightly more interactive than they usually are, where you just stick a bike down and you may be able to din the bell. And you din it about 10 times, and then you go, well, I guess that's my fun. And you move on to the next bit.
Yeah, exactly. It's good stuff. And, I'm happy to see that they're still supporting Animal Crossing as much as possible. Moving on then. So we have a physical release for Hades, which don't have a lot to say about this, but, you can buy Hades on a physical release from March 19th. It comes with a download of the soundtrack, which is a bit depressing. I'd rather have some sort of physical representation of the soundtrack, but sure, download code is there. And there's a 32-page book, which, I mean, let's be honest, a 32-page book is just you're going to forget that you even own. So I don't know. If you really want to play Hades and you don't buy digital games, then do get this. Hades is very good, but yeah, not a lot more to say.
Yeah, I've got nothing for you here. I don't know why they wasted time on this.
Yeah, very weird. Anyway, yeah, we'll move on quickly then. So we got an announcement for a expansion pack for Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. So Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity is a pretty great game. I'm excited to see that more content is coming, but the way they worded the content that's going to be in these packs made it sound incredibly underwhelming. I don't know if they've just worded it badly, but yeah, they basically suggested that this is a £20 expansion pass. You'll get content in June and then in November. But the first content pack, they just said it would have an expanded roster and new challenges. So that doesn't sound like any story content. Maybe there'll be a couple of new characters, but no story stuff. And then the November thing, which I do think they mean is more story stuff. But the way they described it is in November, you will get an expanded roster, new stages, and new character vignettes. Like, is that just a story? Are they just telling me I'm going to get levels and cutscenes? I don't know. But why would you word it that way? Very weird.
Yeah, I think it's bizarre, isn't it? It sounds somewhat underwhelming to me, admittedly. Yeah. I'm not going to play this game anytime soon now that I'm literally playing Persona Strikers, which is just another Musu game anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is news, but it's not one for me. But it sounds like a fairly underwhelming package for $20 or quid, depending on how much you're paying for it.
Yeah, they'll need to spend some time, selling people on why this needed to exist, really, because they've done good DLC in the past for the original Hyrule Warriors, for example. So I have some faith, but yeah, they're going to have to work hard to sell this one. Right, final announcement or non-announcement before we get to the lightning round is that there was no Breath of the Wild news in this conference. They had Gianuma come out and basically say to people, "I'm real sorry. There's no Zelda Breath of the Wild news. Breath of the Wild 2, I should say, news here." Yeah, they just want to get ahead of it, and I think that's fair enough. People would have been disappointed. Obviously, there was other Zelda news on this show, so I think they just didn't want to cut into a Zelda trailer that wasn't Breath of the Wild 2 because of the backlash they'd get from it. So they kind of needed a pre-warning to say, it's not it. Don't get mad.
Yeah, I don't see this game coming out this year. I imagine it'll be next year. That's fine. I'm in no massive rush to play. I mean, the sequel I want to see is Spirit Tracks 2. I could give a toss about Breath of the Wild 2. Give me Spirit Tracks 2, Nintendo, you cowards.
Right then, well, let's get on with the lightning then. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff to cover here. As we said, we're going to be doing 1 minute per game. I'm gonna get our timer ready for us now, Josh.
Get the big clock up.
Let's get going.
I'm gonna shout games at you.
All right then. So,
Fall Guys.
All right, Fall Guys. So Fall Guys is coming to the Switch in summer 2021. I think this is great. I mean, Fall Guys is getting a bit old now. Obviously, it's like a year old, and it's maybe had its moment in the sun, but I just think this is a great fit for the Switch. This is a kind of fun, stupid game to spend 10, 15 minutes on a go, and I think that's right at home on this console.
Yes, I think Fall Guys finally found its natural home on the Nintendo Switch. I've basically not played this game because I was looking forward to playing it on the Nintendo Switch. And yeah, this is going to be great. I can't wait to give this a go, see what happens. Yeah, I think this is going to be good.
Yeah, completely agree. This is also coming to Xbox as well at the same time, so that's good news. Maybe we'll even see it in Game Pass. So yeah, whether you're an Xbox player or a Switch player, always good to see Fall Guys showing up in more places, definitely.
Absolutely. Surely it's coming to Game Pass now. Surely now. This has to be the Game Pass time with it coming to Xbox.
I think it needs to. I think that's happening. It's just a great game to get a bunch of players on.
Absolutely. Okay, Outer Wilds.
All right, Outer Wilds, I can talk about this all day. So yeah, Outer Wilds coming to Switch summer 2021. This is a game that is already in Game Pass, and play this game is all I can say. Outer Wilds is in my top 3 games ever made. I absolutely love this game. You basically have 22 minutes you're stuck in like a 22-minute time loop, and you're trying to figure out why the world just keeps ending and everything explodes, and then you end up back at the start, and you explore all these different planets to try and uncover the mystery of what's happening. And yeah, eventually there's an end to it there. And depressingly, I can never play the game again because I know the trick to make the game end. So yeah, absolutely love this game. Definitely play it on Game Pass or on Switch.
I still remain looking forward to playing this game. It's Annapurna Interactive. They don't publish bad games. They have an incredible track record. I basically, at this point, only want to play this game so I can pretend to hate it. Just to absolutely rag on it for 10 minutes while you go apoplectically mad with disdain. Okay, Famicom Detective Club, The Missing Heir, and The Girl Who Stands Behind.
Well, there goes most of this time. I was initially expecting us to get a Phoenix Wright style announcement at the show, and I guess this is the replacement for that. Yeah, this is just pretty crazy, right? I mean, this is a deep cut from Nintendo's backlog, and yeah, just some detective visual novel kind of games. I think they look good. I think the animation style looks great, and yeah, looking forward to playing them.
I'm amazed they finally got around to localizing these games. These have kind of been hidden gems in Nintendo's library for decades now, and this is probably the most exciting announcement of this entire Nintendo Direct. And a lot of people kind of slept on it. I don't know why. I am absolutely hyped to give these a go. It will fill that Phoenix Wright shaped hole in my heart nicely.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think these look great. I'm not seeing much coverage at all from them. I guess, maybe there was bigger titles, but these look great. Really good to see these.
Samurai Warriors 5.
All right, Samurai Warriors 5. This is coming out summer 2021 as well. Look, this Samurai Warriors is basically, it's just Dynasty Warriors, but Samurai Warriors covers the kind of Japanese history rather than the ancient Chinese Romance of the Three Kingdoms stuff that Dynasty Warriors does. And, it looks all right, I guess. But at this point, I feel like Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors have been overshadowed by their own spin-offs. I don't really see why people would bother playing this over a Hyrule Warriors or a Persona Strikers or, maybe even a Fire Emblem Warriors. I don't know. Those games always seem to be better produced and they have higher production values. Whereas, this thing looked rough around the edges, especially on the Switch footage. It looked shaky. So I'm not sure who this is for.
It's kind of weird how Koei Tecmo has abandoned its own franchises almost in favor of producing other people's, but you can't argue with the results. Those Hyrule Warriors and Strikers games are much more satisfying than anything from this before. Legend of Mana.
Legend of Mana. Okay, this is coming out June 24th, and it's a PS1, like an old PS1 classic RPG in the Mana series. So Secret of Mana, Final Fantasy Adventure, which is somehow a Mana game but has a completely different name. It's part of that series. So yeah, this looks good. It was weird, really, because they made a big point of saying this was a HD remaster, but it just looks like an old SNES game. So I don't know what necessarily the remaster is. The character art in particular looks incredibly 16-bit. So I don't know. I'm sure it'll be good. I've heard really good things about this RPG, but it's the kind of game that I'm probably going to buy and never get around to be honest.
This kind of continues Square Enix's very bizarre trend of remastering half of the game, be it the backgrounds of the characters. They've not fully decided which. I'm mainly looking forward. Legend of Mana is famously baroque in its systems. It is complicated as heck. People are going to hate playing this game because it's far too confusing. Mario Golf Super Rush.
Mario Golf Super Rush. I am very, very excited about this. If you told me to kind of list out 3 games I wanted the most from a Nintendo Direct, I probably would have said a new Mario Golf. I spend just an absolute age on these games. I love Mario Golf. I love Everybody's Golf, or Hot Shots Golf, it's called over in the US, I think. I just adore that kind of arcadey golf stuff. So I'm very excited for this. This looks mad as well. This has some crazy new modes like racing, the racing mode where you hit a shot and then you basically play Mario Kart to get to the ball. It's got a full story mode. Just, massively hyped.
Yeah, this game looks great, doesn't it? This is kind of like a throwback to the old GBA Mario Golfs as well, where you play a human character interacting with the residents of the Mushroom Kingdom. And I am all about those racing to the pin modes where everybody tees off at the same time and just goes on a mad blitz to the fairway. That looks great.
Looks absolutely fantastic. June 25th, this one's out. I don't know if I said that at the start. So squeeze that in before we run out of time.
Okay, Tales from the Borderlands. What the heck do you say about this old game?
This sure is an old Telltale game. For what it's worth, I've always heard that Tales from the Borderlands it's either the best Telltale game or it's the best Telltale game that isn't the season 1 Walking Dead game. So I've always heard positive things from this. Apparently it's really genuinely funny. You don't need to have played the other Borderlands games to get into it. So, it's a kind of game that I do think it's worth, it sounds like it's really worth checking out, but I'm just not going to. I just know I'm not going to.
Yeah, this is I own this. I bought a big Telltale collection for like a penny or something years ago. And so I own this title, but I'm never going to play it. I'm kind of glad it's come out of licensing hell. Telltale's demise has left a lot of these big games they made just kind of in limbo. So it's nice to see games still creeping through. If you do want to buy it, I'd suggest you do, because God knows how long it'll be before it's taken all the way back down again for whatever reason. Okay, game of the show, Stubbs the Zombie in Rebel Without a Pulse.
All right, Stubbs the Zombie in Rebel Without a Pulse. This is out March 16th, so not long to wait at all. This is an original Xbox game, which ran on the engine for the original Halo. and it was mediocre at the time. So seeing it come back about 17 years later is an interesting choice. I mean, I want to play it. It looks, I'm a sucker for just old kind of garbage looking platformer reaction games. So I totally want to play it. But yeah, this is just mad. I don't know why this has been brought back up.
My favorite thing about this is how they're so determined to not really even remaster it. Like, they're doing nothing to it. They're just allowing it to be played in 1080p. That's exactly all they are doing to this 17-year-old game. Nobody at this dev studios thought maybe we should polish it in any way. They've just got, no, Stubbs is perfect as he is, and we refuse to bow to peer pressure. God bless you, Stubbs the zombie. No more heroes free.
Right, I'm not going to take up much time on this because this is a Josh one for sure. This is out August 27th. I thought the trailer looked like garbage. I hated it. I thought the brightness and the contrast on the visuals just looks awful, and I struggled to even look at it. So over to you, Josh.
Andrew with, once again, terrible opinions. No More Hero 3 looks brilliant. This game has such a clever setup. The idea that the aliens are taken over and you're going to destroy them by toppling their top fighters. What a great hook for a premise. It's got all that No More Heroes goodness, all that wacky, zany humor, all the crappy jobs you need to do for about 2 hours before it lets you have any fun. I love that. I love that Suda just stamps on my head and tells me to cut the lawn for 90 minutes before I'm allowed to get back to being a katana-wielding otaku. Give me more of that, Suda. Put me through the ringer. I can't wait to play this game. I buy it now if I could. Oh.
That's fair. I will one day try and get through these games. I think I owe it to myself, but yeah.
Okay, Neon White.
Neon White. Okay, this is a game coming from the developers of Donut County, which I thought was great, and it's been published by Annapurna, who basically only publish great games. Now, I did not think this looked good. That was the only problem. This is some kind of first-person speed-running like shooter game, but you run into cards to build up some sort of deck as you go. So it's a bit like, I don't know, Mirror's Edge crossed with Slay the Spire, I guess. I don't know. It didn't grab me. I thought it looked a bit rough around the edges, but it's not coming out till winter 2021. So, they've got some time to tidy it up. And yeah, I trust the developer and the publisher. So we'll see.
I disagree again. I think this game looks fantastic. This game's got that Doom speed to it that all FPSs should strive for. It's quick, it's zappy. I love the idea of cards adjusting your tactics on the fly. Very clever. Art style on point. Very cute and anime. Love that. It's by the creator of Donut County, for God's sake. It's going to be brilliant. Can't wait for this game. DC hero, superhero girls, teen power.
All right, so this looks like a licensed GameCube title back from the era where the GameCube was getting like a ton of games like SpongeBob SquarePants and stuff. And that's not necessarily a dig. Those games are always like solid 7 out of 10, like 6 out of 10 maybe games. They're fine. And yeah, I don't know. It looked like a fine, charming, like reasonably low budget little action game. I don't know. I think it could be fun, but I can't imagine I'm playing it.
I love the fact that whoever's developed this game at some point watched Persona 5 and decided to steal their entire menu system, because the UI for this game is so Persona. And this might not be a bad thing, because this seems to be delving into the high school life of these superheroes as much as the ass-kicking side. Yeah. I've always said the Persona formula has a lot more room to grow. If this is actually a mini Persona for baby bells, this could be a real good game. I might buy this, and I didn't think I'd say that. This kind of looks fun. Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville.
Right. Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville. This is the third game in the kind of competitive FPS, third-person shooter, spin-off series of Plants vs. Zombies. It's out March 19th on Switch. This has already been out on Xbox and PlayStation for quite a while now. These games are real good. They're probably my favorite online shooters from the last generation. They're just really, really fun to play. Like, you just run around as like a plant or like a cactus that's a sniper, or a thing that shoots peas out of his face. It's all just really stupid good fun. And it's I really like these games. My only negative here is that I don't like playing shooting games like this on the Switch. I just wouldn't play this here.
Yeah, I'm kind of sad that this just isn't Plants vs. Zombies. I want the old weird strategy game back. I'm not a massive multiplayer guy, so although I respect this new change of direction, what they've been doing with their multiplayer games. It's just not for me, but I love the art style. I love the character design. Still a lot of fun. Metopia?
Metopia. My first note I wrote on Metopia was just literally why I wrote, because I don't get why. Like, this is a 3DS RPG game, like a really kind of entry-level RPG for beginners in this sort of, genre. And it also relied quite heavily on the fact you're on a 3DS, because you could use Street Pass to pick up other people's Miis and then they could be in the game, which is all super fun. Can't do that on the Switch. So on the Switch, you have to just make a bunch of Miis and put them in the game, which is infinitely less fun. And I don't think they're doing much to the game, because what they advertised as new features in this trailer were makeup and wigs were the new features in this game. So they're obviously just throwing it straight over from the 3DS, and I just don't know why.
I sure can't wait to make Hitler and make him the only me in this game. So it might as well rename itself Hitlertopia for me. I don't know. I don't get why they're remastering 3DS games, which nobody even uses me on the Switch. Like, nobody, I don't even know if I have a me. Don't get that at all. Project Triangle Strategy.
Right, Project Triangle Strategy. This name of the game killed me, because the game looks great. This is from the series of similar to Project Octopath Traveler, which became Octopath Traveler. It's like it's got this really cool kind of 2D/3D art style. Looks beautiful. The gameplay looks like it's a really deep Final Fantasy Tactics style thing, which again looks fantastic. The story has a bunch of decisions to make that look really important. Look like they can spin off in a lot of directions. All great. And then it just brought up Project Triangle Strategy on the screen, and I actually burst out laughing, because that is the stupidest name. And they say it's a working title, but they'll probably just keep it.
Oh, it's definitely going to be Triangle Strategy. I can't wait for that. I think this game looks okay. I think it looks fine. It looks very Final Fantasy Tactics if you're into that sort of thing. I just can't forgive it for opening up a Nintendo Direct with Scales of Justice and then it not being a Phoenix Wright game. Yeah. I mean, I sat forward in my seat ready to turd my pants with excitement. And then Triangle Strategy? Ugh. Star Wars Hunters.
Star Wars Hunters. Okay, this is a Star Wars third-person shooter that's going to be free to play, and it's made by Zynga. So, roughly translated, that's just me saying nope about 50 times. I've got no interest in any of this. We don't know if it's a team-based shooter or if it's a battle royale. There's a lot of rumblings that it might be a battle royale. So, who doesn't want a late-to-the-party, free-to-play Star Wars Zynga battle royale? Ugh.
I mean, there's a lot of bad things happening in the world at the moment. There's a lot of things which are unforgivable, a lot of cruelties happening against a lot of people, which I can't abide and I can't stand by. But I don't know if there's going to be a worse crime against humanity than this game, which will no doubt be absolutely abhorrent and perhaps will stir the world into action against the oppressors of our time, Zynga. Because, good God, I do not want to play this. Star Wars, oh my, no.
Yeah.
Nope. Knockout City.
Knockout City. Okay, this had a dopey little fun trailer, a bunch of like video game characters playing the game, and kind of it's a bit rubbish, but it was also a bit fun, I guess. This is made by the developers for Mario Kart Home Circuit, the AR real world Mario Kart game, which is a fun thing to be involved in. So yeah, this is like a kind of dodgeball combat multiplayer game, which looked kind of fun, but also gives me extreme Rocket Arena vibes, in that I feel like it'll come out, nobody will buy it except for me, and then it'll be £2 the next week. So that's what this is.
Yeah, if this was published by anybody other than EA, I'd maybe have slightly more excitement for it. But almost all massive multiplayer games go to the Switch to die. Just die a cruel and painful death. And I don't imagine this will be anything different, even though I think it looks perfectly adequate, to be fair.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. Good idea, Dodgeball.
Yeah, it's been previewing well as well, so we'll see.
World's End Club.
All right, World's End Club. This is a kind of side-scrolling action game, but crossed with a narrative adventure. It's made by the people who make the Danganronpa series and Zero Escape, so really good pedigree there for narrative-style games. I don't like the look of the game, if I'm honest. I think the side-scrolling in particular looks really, really poor. But I'd like the pedigree of that studio, so it's one to keep an eye on. This is out May 28th, so not too long to wait.
Yeah, Andrew said some stupid things over the course of his lightning round, but he is spot on this one. I, too, do not care for the 2D side-scrolling of this, and yet the pedigree of the studio gives me hope that this could be something good. It was meant to be an Apple Arcade game before they just gave up on that, so I wonder if there's elements of where it came from still buried into the code of this title, but one to keep an eye on. But I can't say I'm massively hyped.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. Hopefully it'll be good, but I'll probably be checking out some previews and reviews before I jump on that.
Ninja Gaiden Master Collection.
Right, Ninja Gaiden Master Collection. So we had to play Ninja Gaiden 2 recently because it left Game Pass, and this is probably why, because they want to sell it again. So yeah, this is a collection of Ninja Gaiden Sigma 1 and 2 and Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge, which is coming to the Switch on June 10th, along with Xbox and PlayStation. Look, I mean, Ninja Gaiden 1 is great, and Sigma 1 is apparently great. I've heard very bad things about Sigma 2 as opposed to normal 2. Apparently, it has a ton less enemies, but gives them all a lot more health, which is really unsatisfying. So I've heard people say, don't play Sigma 2, just play 2. So don't like that that's in here. And apparently Ninja Gaiden 3 was largely seen as a bad game. So I'm not sure this is a great collection, really, sadly.
Yeah, just please don't let me buy this, because this is the kind of thing I'd buy. And
You're buying this for sure.
I could buy them all separately for like £2. And yeah, I'm going to pay £30 for this like a moron. Oh, God. Saga Frontier Remastered.
Right, this is another PS1 classic RPG that's getting a remaster. It's another one that doesn't particularly look remastered. So a lot in common with Legend of Mana that we spoke about earlier. This is out April 15th. And look, the PS1 had a lot of good RPGs that maybe were quite underappreciated at the time. So I'm happy to see them come back. They're doing something quite cool in this one, in that there's a character in the game that apparently a lot of the characters had big subplots and like branching stories that you could do, but they've added a chunk of story content to one of those characters that didn't really have some in the original release. And I don't know, I find something kind of cool about taking a PS1 game and just making new content for it now. I don't know, it's kind of cool and fun. But yeah, other than that, I don't have a lot of knowledge on this series.
Yeah, I think the Saga series, pretty much all of it is now available on Switch. So if you did want to play it, you can pretty much play through the lot of it. I'm trying very hard again to stop myself buying these games. Please don't let me. Apex Legends.
All right, Apex Legends coming to Switch March 9th. Big no thanks to playing this on the Switch. This is a fast-paced, twitchy battle royale, and it's going to look rough on the Switch, and it's going to run at 30 FPS at most. And there's also no cross progression, so you can't carry any PC or Xbox or PlayStation levels and characters to this version. So yeah, look, it's cool that it's coming over for people who only have a Switch, but I think everyone uses the Switch as a secondary machine. I don't think there's that many players who only have a Switch. But yeah, there it is.
Yeah, Apex Legends, good game, made by the Titanfall devs, which is an even better game. Is the Switch a natural home for these sort of battle royale shooters? Probably not. I don't think this is the place you're going to find a lot of people playing. And the fact you can't bring your progression over kills it for me anyway, because why would I start from scratch on the Switch on this game? Yeah. No one's going to do that. Bit of a pass from me. Skyward Sword HD.
All right, Zelda Skyward Sword HD. So this was the game that was announced after Aonuma told us all, we're sorry, there's no Breath of the Wild 2, because he didn't want people to see Zelda and get excited. And yeah, people don't get too excited about Skyward Sword, sadly. So this is out July 16th. And look, I'm glad to see it come back. The original Skyward Sword came out in 2011 on the Wii, and 2011 is way too late to be playing standard definition Wii games. It looked absolutely dreadful to the point where I couldn't play it. I was sick of motion controls, so I just dropped it, and I love Zelda. So I'm happy to have this come back. It looks like it's got good alternate control options now, so you can use the right stick as the kind of sword if you don't want to do motion stuff, which is a good idea. So yeah, good to see it come back.
Yeah, when I saw Aonuma showing how you can use the Joy-Cons to control this game, I had a pit of dread in my stomach that was the only way you were going to be able to play it. So thank God that right stick demonstration came in. Skyward Sword, probably one of the weaker Zeldas. Still no Spirit Tracks 2. Splatoon 3.
Right, Splatoon 3. I'm not that into Splatoon really. I love the idea of it, but whenever I play it, I just never really get into playing it online too much. But I love that Nintendo have a new series that's doing this well. So yeah, Splatoon 3. This isn't going to be out until 2022. But looks great. The character creator in this thing was awesome. I love that. It was really stylishly done. And it also showed a bit about the fact that Splatoon has these really dark apocalyptic origin story that no one really knows about. Like, it's set in a world where the humans just completely screwed everything, and they're gone now. And now the squid people live here. So there's like an upside down Eiffel Tower in the background of this trailer because it's just ruined from the past. Just, yeah, cool.
Yes, Splatoon's great series, a lot of fun. Probably one of my favorite multiplayer shooters online. One of the few I've got into, at least. I'm glad to see this going back. I like the new theme. The desert area looked cool. The apocalyptic looked cool. And that soundtrack still absolutely bangs. Oh, God, just pump that into my veins.
Yeah, could not agree more. That's it. We're done. That is the end of the lightning. So, yeah, another quick lightning round there. Glad to see Stubbs the Zombie really get a good bit of time there to be talked about.
Get the time he deserves opposite Skyward Sword. God bless you, Stubbs.
Right then, well, that's the end of the lightning round, end of the news segment, and end of the show. So if you'd like to follow us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at Beat the Sheet. We're always posting there about new games coming to Game Pass. We post there as soon as we know what games are leaving. So good place to get that news before the show comes out. If you want to drop us an email with any questions or feedback, you can find us at beatthesheetpodcast@gmail.com. We're always happy to hear from our listeners on there. We'll always be reading anything you send through. So thank you for doing that. And until next time, I'm Andy Wood. I am still at 65% complete on the sheet because I'm playing Final Fantasy VII, and that is an incredibly long game.
And unlike Andrew, I am Josh Jameson, and I have granted myself another percentage point on the sheet. I have now hit 56%. I mean, This is the 4th consecutive week I've managed to climb a percentage point. So we're getting there. We're getting there very slowly. This is what happens when you don't play any game over 3 hours. You just you dedicate your life to short completions and Battlefield.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I'm expecting to see 57 next week, but you are playing Persona 5 Strikers, so I am not expecting to see 57 next week.
Don't expect that next week. No chance.
Right then, well, thanks for listening this week, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.
Goodbye.